I stepped outside with a mug of coffee in one hand and almost dropped it. Fresh concrete, right across the mouth of my driveway, still damp enough to shine in the morning light, smooth as glass, stretched from one edge of the apron to the other like it had always belonged there. For a second, my brain genuinely couldn't process what I was looking at. I stood there barefoot on the porch in a t-shirt and sweatpants thinking maybe I was missing something obvious. Maybe it was temporary. Maybe they were patching something. Maybe I was still half asleep. Then I took 2 steps closer and realized, no. The HOA had literally poured concrete across my driveway overnight and sealed my garage in. No cones. No warning signs. No note on the door. Nothing. Just a clean gray slab blocking the exit like someone had decided I didn't need access to my own property anymore. And standing there in the cold morning air with coffee going lukewarm in my hand, I actually laughed. Because sometimes when something is that ridiculous, your brain doesn't know what else to do. My name's Ethan Carter. I live in a neighborhood called Pine Hollow Estates, just outside Asheville, North Carolina. It's quiet here. Tree-lined streets, front porches, kids riding bikes after school. The kind of neighborhood people picture when they talk about settling down somewhere peaceful. And for the most part, it really was. Until our HOA president decided the neighborhood belonged to him. His name was Douglas Reeves. Doug had been HOA president for almost 6 years. Mid-60s, retired banker, always walking around like he was inspecting a private resort he personally owned. He wore tucked-in polo shirts year-round, drove a golf cart around, even though the whole subdivision was barely 3 blocks wide, and somehow managed to make every conversation feel like he was approving your request for permission to exist. He loved rules, especially when he was the one interpreting them. 3 months before the driveway incident, the HOA board approved a sidewalk expansion project along our side of the neighborhood. Didn't bother me. Sidewalks are sidewalks. No issue there. Then I saw the contractor's markings painted near the edge of my driveway. That got my attention fast, because my driveway wasn't HOA land. Not even partially. It sat entirely inside my deed line. Surveyed. Recorded. Crystal clear. No easement. No shared access rights. Nothing ambiguous. I knew because when I bought the place 4 years earlier, the previous owner had warned me Doug liked pushing boundaries, literally and figuratively. So I emailed him. Kept it simple. Hey Doug, saw the sidewalk plans. Just a heads up, the driveway apron is private property, and any construction touching that area would need written approval from me first. That was it. Friendly. Professional. He wrote back that same afternoon. Short email. No greeting. No discussion. Community infrastructure improvements approved by the board take priority over individual homeowner preferences. That was the whole thing. I stared at the screen for a second, then leaned back in my chair. Because there's a difference between somebody misunderstanding property lines and somebody basically telling you they don't care. So I responded. Attached the county survey. Attached the deed. Clearly stated that no work could be done on the driveway without consent. Sent it. And then nothing. No reply. No follow-up. No call. Weeks passed. Spring came in. Dogwoods bloomed. Life stayed normal. I figured maybe the HOA attorney had finally looked at the paperwork and told Doug not to touch it. Turns out I gave him way too much credit. That Tuesday morning when I found the concrete, my next-door neighbor Rachel was outside watering plants. She looked over, saw me staring at the driveway, and immediately walked toward the curb. Her eyes got wide. Oh my God. Yeah. They actually did it? Looks like it. She bent slightly, touched the edge of the slab. Still damp. Still curing. She looked back up. Ethan, they poured this overnight? Apparently. And what really got me wasn't even the blockage. It was how intentional it looked. This wasn't sloppy. It wasn't a mistake. The concrete tied directly into the new sidewalk line. Smooth, clean. Professionally finished. Which meant somebody ordered a crew. Scheduled it. Sent workers onto private property after dark. And fully expected I'd wake up and just accept it. That part made my stomach tighten. I set the coffee on the porch rail and went inside. Grabbed my phone. Grabbed my property file. Called Buncombe County Permitting. The woman who answered was polite. I gave her the address. Waited. Heard keyboard clicks. Then she came back and said, No permit issued for concrete construction at that property. I asked her to repeat it. She did. I wrote the time down. Then I started documenting everything. Photos from every angle. Video. Measurements. Survey markers. Close-ups. Timestamps. Every email with Doug. Every attachment. Everything. Rachel stood nearby while I worked. At one point, she shook her head and muttered, "He finally lost his mind. Maybe. Or maybe he just got too comfortable being told yes." By noon, I had a certified notice drafted. Unauthorized concrete had been placed on private property. No permit filed. Removal required within 72 hours. Failure to comply would result in contractor removal and county action. I mailed one copy certified, dropped another at the HOA office, and at around 3:30, my phone rang. "Doug," I answered. His voice sounded calm, almost amused. "Ethan, I got your letter. I assumed you would. The concrete is already curing." I noticed. This really doesn't need to become dramatic. I remember smiling, not because it was funny, because the nerve of that man was honestly incredible. And I said, "Doug, this became dramatic when your crew poured concrete across my driveway. It's a neighborhood improvement. It's private property." Pause. Then his tone sharpened. "You're overreacting." I looked out the kitchen window at that gray strip hardening across my driveway, and something in me got very, very still. "No," I said quietly. "I'm giving you 72 hours. He laughed once. "Cold. You're making a mistake." And I said, "Maybe, but not the first one this week." Then he hung up. I stood there listening to the silence afterward, staring through the blinds at the concrete baking under the afternoon sun. And for the first time since morning, I stopped feeling angry. Anger burns hot. Fussed. What I felt then was colder, calmer, more focused, because deep down I already knew he wasn't moving it. Which meant if Doug Reeves wanted to wake up Friday morning and see how serious private property rights could get, he was about to find out. 72 hours can feel weirdly long when somebody has poured concrete across your driveway. By Wednesday morning, the slab had already cured enough to lighten in color. It looked permanent, clean edges, smooth finish, like the HOA had every intention of making it seem official and hoping eventually I'd just stop fighting. Every time I walked past it, I kept thinking the same thing. This man really expected me to live with this. By mid-morning, Buncombe County called back. The inspector assigned to my complaint introduced herself as Megan Foster. Straight to the point, no wasted words. "Mr. Carter, I reviewed the photos you sent. Okay, there's no permit filed. Correct. And according to the survey, that concrete extends into private property. Also correct." A short pause. Then she said something that honestly helped more than she probably realized. "You're not overreacting." That hit me harder than I expected. Because when somebody in authority keeps brushing you off long enough, a small part of you starts wondering if maybe you're somehow being unreasonable. Megan cleared that up fast. She asked for copies of the deed and HOA correspondence. I emailed everything. 10 minutes later, she confirmed the county had opened an official code review. That evening, Rachel came by with iced tea and neighborhood gossip. Apparently, Doug had been telling people the driveway had always overlapped common frontage, and the board was simply correcting alignment. Rachel snorted when she said it. "Literally everyone on this block knows that driveway's yours. Apparently, facts are optional now." She laughed, then leaned closer. "Also, his wife looked furious when your certified letter showed up." That one made me smile. A little. But Thursday came. Then Thursday afternoon. Then evening. Still nothing. No epaligi. No crew. No attempt to fix it. Doug was gambling. He thought dragging things out would wear me down. He thought I'd spend weeks sending paperwork and eventually cave. What he didn't know was I'd already made calls. A few years earlier, I'd hired a contractor named Vince Holloway to repair drainage behind my garage. Great crew. Professional. Fussed. Thursday morning, I called him. Explained everything. Long silence. Then Vince said, "Wait, the HOA poured concrete over your driveway." "Yep. And it's on private property?" "Yep. And no permit?" Another pause. Then he laughed. "Well, that's one way to make Friday interesting." I booked him immediately. Then called a licensed concrete cutting crew. Set both for Friday, 6:30 a.m. sharp. Thursday night, I barely slept. Not from nerves, mostly anticipation. By 5:40 Friday morning, I was already awake. Still dark outside. Streetlights on. Trees barely moving. Then headlights rolled into Pine Hollow. First Vince's truck. Then the saw trailer. Then another pickup. Engines low. Equipment unloading. Something about professional crews arriving before sunrise just feels serious. Vince stepped out carrying coffee. Looked at the slab. Whistled. Wow. Yeah. That's somehow even dumber than I pictured. County Inspector Megan arrived 20 minutes later. Clipboard in hand. Walked the property line with the survey markers. Measured everything herself. Took photos. Checked paperwork. Then looked up and said exactly what I'd been waiting to hear. You are authorized to restore access to your property. That was it. Vince nodded once. Crew fired up the saw, and suddenly the quietest neighborhood in Asheville sounded like a construction site. The blade hit the concrete and screamed. Dust kicked up. A bright, clean cut opened exactly on the survey line. Neighbors started coming outside almost immediately. Front doors opening. Garage doors lifting. People pretending they were grabbing mail. Nobody fooled anybody. Rachel came out with her coffee and stood right at the curb. Across the street, old Mr. Palmer literally brought a folding chair. And then, Doug, his front door opened hard. He stepped out fast, wearing khakis and a navy polo like he was headed into a board meeting. Then stopped dead when he saw the saw crew cutting through the slab. He marched across the street. What exactly is going on here? Vince didn't even look up. Licensed removal. Doug turned to me. You hire contractors? Yep. You can't alter HOA infrastructure. Megan looked over her clipboard. He can remove unpermitted construction placed on private land. Doug blinked, like he genuinely couldn't believe someone had said no to him out loud. Then his face tightened. This was approved by the board. Megan didn't even flinch. Board approval doesn't override county code or deeded property boundaries. That landed hard. Doug opened his mouth, closed it. Then the crew lifted the first section. Perfect cut, heavy rectangular slab, raised clean and loaded onto the trailer. And man, I'd be lying if I said that wasn't satisfying. 3 days earlier, they'd poured it like a statement. Now it hung in the air like proof of a terrible decision. Rachel whispered, that is unbelievably satisfying. I almost laughed. Doug looked furious. Do you realize what this is costing the association? I looked right at him. Probably less than a lawsuit. That shut him up. The saw kept moving, section by section, dust floating in morning sunlight, neighbors watching like it was live TV. By 8:30, the entire blockage was gone. By 10, Vince had the transition edge rebuilt smooth and clean. Driveway fully open again. Looked better than before. Megan finished inspection notes. Took one last photo. Then quietly told me, you handled this the right way. I thanked her. She packed up and left. By noon, every truck was gone. Street quiet again. Birds back. Normal neighborhood. Except now, every single person on the block had watched Doug's little power play get cut apart in broad daylight. And I knew he hated every second of it. I found out exactly how much around 3 that afternoon. Mailbox slammed. Hard. I walked out. What envelope? Inside was an invoice packet. Concrete removal. Saw cutting. Debris haul-off. Permit filing. Code documentation. Just over $6,000. And because the work had been unauthorized and tied directly to HOA action, the association was responsible. Meaning Doug Reeves had paid contractors to pour concrete across my driveway, then paid even more to remove it. I stood there reading the invoice twice, then slowly looked across the street. His blinds moved. Barely. He was watching. I gave him a little wave. Held up the invoice. Then went back inside. No speech. Didn't need one. But something told me Doug still wasn't finished. And the move he made next ended up costing him way more than money. By Friday night, Pine Hollow felt different. You could feel in the air. Not because anyone was openly arguing. Nobody in neighborhoods like ours ever does that unless things are really bad. But people were lingering outside longer than usual. Walking dogs a little slower. Standing at the mailbox with no mail in their hands. Everybody knew what happened. Everybody had seen the saw crew. Everybody had seen Doug standing there while that concrete got cut apart piece by piece. And everybody definitely knew the HOA had just spent thousands cleaning up a mess Doug created himself. That evening, I grilled chicken on the back patio and honestly tried to put the whole thing behind me. Driveway was clear. County had documentation. Matter handled. I figured Doug had embarrassed himself enough, and maybe now he'd finally stop pushing. I should have known better. Tuesday afternoon, I got home from work and found a certified envelope leaning against the front door. Wildest, Dugas signature. For pages. I read every one of them standing in my kitchen. He accused me of damaging shared infrastructure. Claimed I interfered with approved community improvements. Said my actions created unnecessary costs for the association. Then came the part that made me actually laugh. If I failed to reimburse the HOA within 10 business days, they would begin issuing fines and reserve the right to place a lien against my home. I read that line twice, set the papers down, and just stared, because after everything, after county inspection, after witnesses, after invoices, this man still thought intimidation might work. It was almost impressive. Almost. I poured a fresh cup of coffee and called my attorney, Claire Donovan. Smartest real estate attorney I know. Calm voice. Sharp mind. The kind of person who can say, "Good afternoon," and somehow make it sound legally binding. She answered, "Hey, Ethan, you busy?" "Depends. I've got a fun HOA situation." She laughed. "Send it." 10 minutes after I emailed the letter, she called back. And the first thing she said was, "You're kidding." "I wish." He threatened a lien? After documented trespass? Apparently. Silence. Then Claire laughed out loud. Real laughter. Oh, this is going to end badly for him. By Wednesday morning, she sent the HOA response. Professional. Detailed. Absolutely brutal. She attached the county report. Survey. Date. Permit records. Invoices. Photos. Everything. Then she ended with one sentence, so sharp I almost framed it. If the association attempts fines, liens, or retaliatory action regarding unauthorized encroachment on private property, my client will immediately pursue damages and personal liability against all responsible board members. That email hit around 11. At noon, Rachel texted me, "Look outside." I stepped onto the porch. Across the clubhouse parking lot, Doug was unloading folding chairs. Monthly HOA meeting. Except this time, way more people were showing up than normal. A lot more. Families. Couples. Neighbors I'd barely seen all year. Rachel walked over carrying lemonade and sat on my porch like she bought tickets. "You going?" "Nope." Smart. Then we watched. People filed in. Doors shut. Meeting started. For 20 minutes, everything stayed quiet. Then voices. Then louder. Then somebody opened the clubhouse door, and suddenly we could hear Doug clear as day. This board acted in the neighborhood's best interest. Another voice immediately answered. On his property? Then another. Without permits? Then another. Why are dues paying for this? Rachel slowly took a sip. Well, this escalated. I didn't say anything. Just listened. A few minutes later, people started walking out. Talking fast. Shaking heads. Then Mr. Palmer spotted me and headed over smiling. That was something. How bad? He laughed. Doug came in expecting support. And he got math. Turns out the HOA treasurer stood up during the meeting and confirmed Doug personally approved the sidewalk crew after receiving my written objection. Then admitted HOA funds paid for the original concrete and the removal and county fees. Once the total got read aloud, that room apparently changed fast. Because nobody minds HOA dues covering landscaping. But people get real interested when thousands disappear because one guy ignored a property survey. Doug tried blaming contractors, then blamed county confusion, then blamed homeowners resisting neighborhood improvements, which, according to everyone, was exactly the wrong move. Because once people feel talked down to, they start remembering every annoying thing you've done for the last 6 years. By the end of the meeting, the vice president called for an emergency vote. Doug was asked to step down immediately pending review. Construction approvals were frozen. A homeowner oversight committee got formed. and the entire board suddenly became very interested in reading actual property maps. I stayed home. Didn't say a word. Didn't need to. Saturday morning, Doug's golf cart was gone. Monday, his resignation email hit everyone's inbox. Short, formal, said he was stepping down for personal reasons and wished the neighborhood the best. Nobody believed a word of it. Wednesday afternoon, the acting HOA president came by. Her name was Karen Ellis. Nice woman, straight shooter. She handed me a written statement confirming my driveway was recognized as fully private property and that no future modifications would happen without direct written consent. Then she apologized. Simple, honest, no excuses. And honestly, that was enough, because I never wanted revenge. Didn't want Doug humiliated. Didn't want drama. I just wanted what any homeowner should reasonably expect. Respect. Respect boundaries. Respect paperwork. And respect the fact that a title doesn't magically give you authority over somebody else's land. These days, the driveway looks exactly like it did before. Clean, quiet, normal. And weirdly, I appreciate boring a lot more now. Rachel still jokes about it when she walks by. She'll point and say, "Hard to believe that little strip of concrete nearly caused a neighborhood revolt." And every time I tell her the same thing. It wasn't concrete, because it really wasn't. It was somebody getting too comfortable with power, forgetting that eventually somebody says no. And sometimes no comes with county inspectors, sunrise saw blades, and a $6,000 lesson in boundaries. So now I'm curious. If you woke up tomorrow morning and found your HOA had poured concrete across your driveway overnight with no warning, no permit, and no permission, what would you have done? Would you call a lawyer first? Try talking it out? Or bring in the saw crew before breakfast and let the whole street hear it? Tell me in the comments, because honestly, I'd love to know where you draw that line.